Sylvester Yarrow is on a streak of bad luck with no end in sight. She's been doing her best to keep the family cargo business going after her mom's death, but between mounting debt and increasing attacks by the Nile on unsuspecting ships, Syl is in danger of losing all she had left of her mother. She heads to the galactic capital of Coruscant for help, but she gets sidetracked when she's drawn into a squabble between two of the Republic's most powerful families over a patch of space on the frontier. Tangled up in familial politics is the last place Syl wants to be, but the promise of a big payoff is enough to keep her interested. Meanwhile, Jedi Knight Vernestra Rwoh has been summoned to Coruscant with no idea of why or by whom. She and her Padawan, Imri Kantaros, arrive at the capital along with Jedi Master Comac Vitus and his Padawan Reath Silas, and are asked to assist with the property dispute on the frontier. But why? What is so important about an empty patch of space? The answer will lead Vernestra to a new understanding of her abilities and take Syl back to the past and to truths that will finally come out of the shadows. I must admit that at times this doesn't seem like a High Republic book. The story still fits perfectly into the new era, but it's a much more separated story without the constant impact of the Republic Fair or Markian Row in the Nile. While some may see this as a drawback, I found it a refreshing new spin on the era, showing new details that we wouldn't get from a book about Jedi and the battles on the frontier. While I've never been a huge fan of stories about Coruscant and the political side of Star Wars, the audience gets to see what life was like during the new era for a completely separate demographic. And by focusing on a mix of Jedi smugglers, politicians, and businessmen, we get to delve deeper into the themes of family and found family and worthiness, which were all displayed perfectly throughout this story without ever needing to hit the reader over the head about it. This book had some of the best dialogue I've ever read in a Star Wars book. Justina Ireland excels in character development through conversation and internal thoughts without needing to rely on outside forces. Just like in A Test of Courage, there were astounding master and apprentice moments between Vernestra and Imri that develop both characters as individuals and as a pair. Even for non-Jedi, Ireland packs endless emotion and conflict into a few lines between adversaries. What the first act lacks in a story is more than made up for in the conversations between characters. Many of the criticisms that I've heard about this book have centered around the characters and the political aspect of the book, and while I agree that the new characters weren't the strongest of the era, they were still developed enough for me to care about them. Characters like Sylvester Yarrow weren't very interesting throughout the political drama on Coruscant, but once pieces started to fall into place and more is revealed about the characters, they aren't a burden on the story, but rather build the tension for a climactic ending. When I began reading the book, I found myself wishing that the Jedi were the main focus of the story. Vernestra and Imri shine throughout the book with great developmental moments together and separated. However, as the story progresses, I found their distinct personalities to pair well with the regular citizens to form a ragtag crew. It did take a bit of getting used to, with popular Nile like Markian Row not playing a huge role, but it was surprisingly refreshing to see Nile lower on the totem pole who can still be a threat to everyone. While the political aspect of the story was a bit tedious to read, I absolutely loved everything focused around hyperspace. It's always been a topic that interested me in Star Wars, and it's a main focus in the book because of both the developing era and the story's main problem. And even though the book is largely separated from the Nile and the recent attack on the Republic Fair, the stakes are still largely present, and the threat is described in a convincing way that continues to remind the audience of the drastic effects it could have on the galaxy. The audiobook for Out of the Shadows was mostly good, but it wasn't anything special. The narrator did a good job of distinguishing characters, and the minimal sound effects and background music helped play into the immersion for the rare moments they were present. Like the other High Republic books, Out of the Shadows is a great read that develops the era in new ways. However, if you're tight on money or time, this book doesn't appear to be a necessity quite yet, although that could change depending on how the era progresses. Familiar characters return and continue to be developed in fascinating ways, but there is only one consequence from the story that I can see altering the rest of the overall story. It may not be as important as the two adult novels, but if you're invested in the new era of storytelling, this book will be well worth your time. Diverse characters collide in a slower-paced and separated High Republic story with fitting themes and astounding dialogue, earning this book a rating of 8 out of 10. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow me on social media, and comment down below what content you'd like to see in the future. As always, thank you all for watching, and remember,
the Force will be with you, always.